When I bought the abandoned house next door for $100, everyone thought I'd lost my mind. The paint was peeling windows, shattered a sagging porch like it had given up years ago. But the real horror didn't come from the house, it came from the HOA president who called 911 the second I parked my truck. Before I even touched the doorknob, police lights flashed across the yard and she stood there, clipboard in hand, trembling with rage, swearing I was breaking into private property. That was the moment I realized something: this neighborhood wasn't haunted by ghosts. It was haunted by greed. My name's James Anderson. I'm a retired engineer, the kind of guy who believes anything broken can be fixed with enough patience and duct tape. Pinewood Estates was supposed to be the perfect neighborhood. White fences, manicured lawns, mailboxes that matched like soldiers in formation. The HOA rules were legendary. They even dictated how long your trash can could see daylight. The place was spotless, soulless too. And at the far end of Maple Ridge Lane stood the one imperfection Pinewood tried to erase: a house everyone called cursed. 8 years empty stories of flickering lights and ghostly whispers. I didn't buy the superstition. I bought the math. A $100 property with solid bones. That's not a curse. That's an opportunity. That's when I met her, Olivia Smith, HOA president. Blonde hair in a rigid bob pastel blazer, a smile stretched so tight it could snap. She marched up the sidewalk before I could even shut off the engine. "May I ask what you're doing here?" she said, voice sharp enough to cut glass. Looking at the house, I said, "It's for sale." "Oh, that," she sneered. "We prefer to keep curiosity to a minimum. Safety hazards, mold, probably asbestos." I raised an eyebrow. "Or maybe you just don't want someone buying it." Her eyes narrowed. "Even if you could, Pinewood has standards." "Good thing this house isn't under HOA jurisdiction," I said. "Built before you existed." Her smile faltered. She didn't like that answer. When I signed the deed the next day, she called the cops claiming I was trespassing. The officers checked the papers, apologized, and left. She didn't. She just stood there pale and speechless, watching me like I'd stolen her crown. Later that night, someone spray-painted the word "freak" across my fence. The next morning, a letter appeared in my mailbox. "Leave while you still can." For the first time in years, I questioned myself. Maybe I didn't belong here. Maybe I should have walked away. It wasn't fear, it was exhaustion. Every glare from the neighbors, every whisper on the next-door app chipped away at me. I was one bad morning away from packing up when an old man knocked on my porch railing. "Name's Dave Miller," he said, leaning on a cane. "Been here since '86. You're not the first one she's tried to ruin." "Olivia." He nodded. "5 families before you. She spread rumors, filed fake complaints, made life hell until they sold cheap. Then she or her friends bought the houses for pennies." I stared at the old boards beneath my boots. "Why hasn't anyone stopped her?" He chuckled bitterly. "Because she hides behind bylaws. Folks get tired of fighting and just give up." I looked at that crumbling house behind me and thought maybe I was supposed to find this place. Maybe this fight wasn't just about property lines, it was about standing up to something rotten. The next day I set up 8 motion-activated cameras around the yard wired to cloud storage. That night at 2:47 a.m., the front camera caught her. Olivia Smith crouched by my mailbox, snapping pictures like a paparazzi in pearls. The next morning I printed a still frame and mailed it to her office. No message, just evidence. An hour later an email arrived. "Stop this nonsense, Mr. Anderson. You're only making it worse for yourself." Perfect. She'd just admitted it was her. But I wasn't done. I called an old friend, Ethan Clark, a private investigator with a gift for digging through the dirt politely buried under public record. Within a week he called back. "You were right, James. Her brother's the deputy director of city planning. And guess what? There's a proposed highway project set to run right past Pinewood's east border." I felt my stomach drop. "So that's what this is about." He sighed. "Yep. If the route gets approved, every lot here triples in value. Olivia's been buying up properties through shell companies. 5 of them, all traced back to her home address. It hit me like a blueprint snapping into place. The fake ghost stories the 911 call the threats, they weren't superstition. They were strategy. I wasn't fighting a control freak. I was fighting corruption. I started documenting everything. I created a folder on my desktop called Pinewood Integrity Project. Photos, emails, letters, timestamps, every move she made went in there. Then I filed a formal request for the HOA's financial records. Under state law, they had 10 business days to respond. I walked into the next board meeting with the papers in hand. Olivia's smile was pure poison. "You don't belong here, Mr. Anderson." "Funny," I said, "the law says I do. And so does this request." "You don't understand," she hissed. "Those records are confidential." "Not from homeowners," I said. "Unless you're hiding something." The room went dead quiet. A few board members shifted in their seats. She slammed her gavel and stormed out. That was the first time I saw fear crack through her composure. The retaliation came fast. Anonymous letters, false HOA violation notices, a fresh wave of rumors claiming I had a criminal record. One morning I found flyers taped to every mailbox, my face printed under the headline, "Protect Your Families." I wanted to punch a wall. Instead, I drove to the police station, handed over the flyers, and filed a harassment report. The deputy just shook his head. "You're making waves, Mr. Anderson. Be careful, they don't like exposure." I smiled grimly. Good. I prefer rough seas. That night I sat alone in the half-renovated living room staring at the cracked wallpaper. For a moment the silence pressed on me like weight. I thought about everything I'd lost: peace, trust, neighbors, respect. Maybe it wasn't worth it. Maybe walking away would be easier. But then I looked at the old diploma still hanging crooked in the study. Henry Morrison, Ph.D., Civil Engineering. The house's former owner. He'd stood his ground once. Maybe it was my turn. The next day Ethan called again. "You'll want to sit down for this. Olivia's not just flipping property. We found $120,000 missing from the HOA's budget, all funneled into fake maintenance companies. One of them's registered to her husband." I laughed, half shock, half triumph. Got her. I met with a lawyer named Sarah Chen. She listened quietly, then said, "We'll need evidence admissible in court: financial records, invoices, witness testimony. But if this holds up, she's looking at felony embezzlement." We built the case piece by piece. Dave supplied old newsletters and budget reports. Carol from Lot 17 sent copies of forged invoices. By the end of the week, we had enough to file a subpoena. The next HOA meeting was chaos. The clubhouse overflowed, residents whispering, glaring at Olivia as she tried to speak. "This is all misinformation," she insisted. "I have done nothing wrong." I stood from the back. "Then you won't mind explaining the $12,500 pool repair you billed during a year the pool was closed?" Gasps. Someone shouted, "Show us the books." She froze. Sarah stepped forward, holding up a folder. "We already did. Court-certified copies. Every transfer, every forged signature." Olivia's face twisted. "You're all ungrateful," she screamed. "Without me, Pinewood would fall apart." Dave's voice boomed from the crowd. "No, Olivia. Without you, it might finally heal." And then came the sirens. 2 sheriff's deputies entered, led by the same officer who'd responded to her 911 stunt months ago. "Olivia Smith," he said, "we have a warrant to search your home and office for financial evidence." She backed away, shaking her head. "This is absurd. I'm the president." "Not anymore," he said. "You're suspended." You could have heard a pin drop. She left screaming, the sound echoing down the hallway like the end of a bad dream. But the nightmare wasn't quite over. 2 days later, her husband was caught breaking into my shed at 3 a.m. trying to steal evidence. When the police hauled him off, he confessed, "She told me to," said it was the only way to save her. That confession sealed the case. In court, the sign on the door read, "State of Nebraska versus Olivia Smith." I sat behind Sarah, hands clenched, listening as witness after witness spoke. Carol trembled through her testimony. Dave leaned on his cane, but his voice carried steady. She turned our neighborhood into her personal bank account. James was just the first one who didn't back down. When my turn came, I stood and looked Olivia in the eye. "I didn't buy a haunted house," I said. "I bought the truth everyone else was too scared to face." The evidence was ironclad: bank transfers, fake invoices, even a vacation to Rome funded by HOA fees. Her lawyer tried to call her overzealous. The judge wasn't buying it. "Mrs. Smith," he said, "you abused your authority for personal gain. The court orders restitution of $127,000 to the HOA plus fines and a 10-year ban from public office." She went pale. "This isn't fair," she whispered. "No," the judge said evenly, "it's justice." And just like that, the Queen of Pinewood fell. I walked out of that courthouse into the cool afternoon air, the weight finally lifting off my chest. No cheers, no cameras, just quiet. I didn't need celebration. I'd already won the only thing that mattered: peace. The kind that doesn't come from fear or rules, but from knowing you stood your ground when it counted. Because sometimes the scariest thing in a neighborhood isn't the ghosts people whisper about. It's the living who think they can own everything and answer to no one. And in the end, I learned something simple. The real haunting isn't in the walls, it's in the greed we let live among us.